been slain. Double kill. Ally has been slain. Triple kill. Quadra kill.
What's going on, everybody? It's Kill Switch coming back for another Teacher Tuesday episode. This one being episode 14 in the series. I'll start this one again. Apologizing for the missed week last week. Life's just, getting crazy, busy. Which is no excuse. I just wanted to apologize for it. Again, hopefully I get these out to you every week. And typically if there's something going on where I have to miss a week or push one back, I'll usually let everyone know in the Discord, the Strange Matter Discord. So just keep your eyes out for that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into this week's video.
Worth a shot.
So this week, the hero of the week is going to be Boris. So Boris is he's a relatively easy hero to cover, but he is super fun to play. I know he's on the verge of being a little overpowered right now. That's pretty much a consensus decision there amongst the player base. He does fall in the later game typically, and he does fall kind of to CC, but still a really good hero overall, really strong right now. So we'll jump into the overview video here. So starting off, looking at the base stats here again, like always, really nothing like crazy in here, but just something to kind of eyeball, see what he starts off with at level 1. Nothing crazy. He is a melee, physical power based melee hero. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into his abilities here. So his first ability is going to be his best ability, his bread and butter ability. So, passive, sense the direction of all enemy heroes that are below 50% max health. So overall, a good passive ability. But the active is where this ability gets nuts. So, sense the nearest enemy hero within 4,000 at all levels units, gaining 20, 24, 28, 32, and 36% movement speed when moving toward the target, and 50, 62.5, 75, 87.5, and 100 attack speed when within melee range. So this ability is crazy. This basically turns Boris into a fiend on the battlefield. If you have this up for a fight, you're almost guaranteed, I mean, barring any type of like crazy setbacks or like 1v3s or 4s or something like that, you're almost always going to get a kill with this. And something also to note is that the cooldown on this is reduced by half at max level. The mana cost does go up a little bit, but he's not a mana intensive hero, so like the mana cost doesn't really mean anything. And this cooldown, 120, 105, 90, 75, 60, is pretty crazy, especially because you'll build a little bit of cooldown reduction with Boris and the items. So what I typically do as well is I buy, as far as order of abilities go, I will buy the blood tracker last, but I will upgrade it. I will prioritize upgrading it first, if that makes sense. So typically I'll buy the right mouse button and then the bare necessities first, followed by blood tracker. And the reason for that is so that you can start getting those canisters early, and then the right mouse button just because it's a damage dealing ability and also kind of like a dash in a sense. So like you won't need this super early on, but getting it to that lower cooldown is pretty big. So I mean, of course, you could always upgrade. You could prioritize the right mouse button and just be doing chunks of damage with it and all that. But I think having this blood tracker up more often than not is the better play. Because like I said, when you have this up, you can pretty much guaranteed secure a kill, even on somebody who's close to tower, even just because of how much damage you can put out against them. So there's something to keep in mind with that ability. Now, moving on to his next ability, that's the Bare Necessities. So, passive. Units drop orbs of energy upon death that can be collected to fill Boris's canisters. 20 at all levels energy per canister. Inject all full canisters lasting for 10 seconds at all levels. 1. Enhance Bloodlust healing by 40, 60, 80, 100, and 120%. 2 canisters enhance Bloodlust damage by 40, 60, 80, 100, and 120%. And 3 canisters gain 10, 13, 16, 19, 22% movement speed. And then 4 canisters gain Unstoppable for 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, 2, and 2.2 seconds. So, pretty nuts ability as well. That's why I will typically buy this before, just so I can start stacking up those orbs of energy and get those canisters full. Now, remembering to use this in the fight is key, because a lot of times what you'll do is you'll use the blood tracker to find an enemy, and you'll start chasing them down, you'll start attacking them and stuff, but you'll forget that you have this. Now, this really comes into play more so when it's like team fighting or like maybe a 1v2, because this might be the difference between, getting a kill and possibly a second kill, or taking out multiple enemies, or it could just be the difference of like getting the kill and being able to survive and get out and regroup with your team, something like that. Especially if you have all 4 of those canisters full. This is just insane. You just got to remember to pop this. A lot of times what I find myself doing is like saving it, because I'm like, I don't want to inject all these canisters if I don't need to, if I'm just 1v1ing like a caster or a squishy or something. But we all know, like 7 times out of 10, a 1v1 is never just a 1v1 unless somebody's just really in bad positioning. There's usually always another enemy close by coming to help, coming to rotate in on you. So just, keep that in mind. Know your surroundings when you have this ability up. You don't want to waste it, but you also don't want to not use it when you should have. So just keep that in mind. Alright, moving on to the next ability. That's going to be his ultimate. That is his Rocket Slam. So target an enemy hero and launch into the air, crashing back down, dealing 200, 250, and 300 damage. Executes targets below 15, 20, and 25% maximum health. Now, this shows energy damage. I don't actually know if that is correct. Typically, energy damage is in purple and physical damage is in orange. I'm not sure if that's correct or not. But really, the main thing you're looking at here anyways is the execute threshold. So, any enemy, and I know you're not going to be able to tell based off of the percentage, like, oh yeah, that enemy's below 25% or whatever. But there will be an indicator on that person, just like with Fang Mao's ultimate, where it'll show the red skull when they're within the execute range. So that's really like the biggest thing with this is essentially just like, instead of having to swing 3, 4, 5 more times, you just get to use this and kill them. Easy peasy. Now the range on this, it doesn't say what the range is, but it's not like super far away. It's probably just about the same as any like teleport / jump ability, maybe a little shorter. I think I would probably closer equivalent it to maybe Countess's Q, her teleport in. I'm not for certain on the numbers, but it's somewhere in there. Like it's nothing like super crazy or anything. And then your cooldown, 90, 80, and 70 at max level, and then your mana cost is 90, 105, and 110 at max level. So overall, really good ability. Again, just, you know, you can also use it as a re-engage. Like, say you get disengaged from a fight, and maybe the enemy's not at the execute range, but you can't get back into range to, like, secure the kill. You can use this to jump back in and finish them off with maybe a right mouse button or a couple of auto attacks or something like that. So that is something you can do with that as well. Moving to his left mouse button, that's just the melee attack. Nothing special here. Moving to the right mouse button, so this is his maul, and this is like, if Blood Tracker is 1A, this is 1B, because this ability is also pretty insane. Dash forward 550 units at all levels, slashing units twice for 40.3, 44.95, 49.6, 54.25, and 55.8 physical damage per attack, applying on-hit effects. Boris is unstoppable for the duration of Maul. So this also scales off your basic attack. This is kind of similar to Grux's right mouse button as well. This will scale based off of how much damage your basic attacks will do and apply any on-hit effects as well. The cooldown of this is 10 seconds at all levels, which with a little bit of cooldown reduction built, this will be more like 7 or 8, give or take. And your mana cost is 50 at all levels, which again, that's not high. Boris is a mana intensive unit, so you won't really have to worry about that. One thing you want to keep in mind with this is that you are unstoppable for the duration of this. So time it right with these fights. If you're fighting a crowd control heavy team, you're gonna want to know when to use this. When to use this is kind of key for your survival. If you're facing like a steal or something, it's gonna be difficult to time this perfectly, but you might be able to avoid maybe a steal ult or something like that with this. And if you do and put enough separation between the two of you, that can ultimately decide the fight, or at least the securing a couple kills or whatever it may be. I would just keep that in mind. And what it means by applying on-hit effects would be like Gravedigger's Crossbow or Fist of the Titan, something like that. The attacks that will deal bonus damage on basic attacks or what have you, stuff like that. That's what that means. So overall, really good ability, and probably, if not, it might be on par or better than the Blood Tracker. It's, you know, it's kind of a toss-up. Really good ability. Moving on to the passive. So this is also another really good ability for Boris. Gain 5 at all levels % life steal. Basic attacks deal 0, 0.15, 0.2, 0.25, and 0.3% bonus damage per 1% maximum health you and your target are missing. So the more damage you deal and the more damage you take, the more damage you're going to deal, which is kind of nuts, because that means Boris is more dangerous when he's actually not at full health, which you probably will find yourself in that situation quite a bit, especially if you get pretty aggressive with him. It's essentially kind of the same idea as a Chimera. You just keep swinging. You stay in the fight, you keep swinging, you hope your lifesteal and your damage and your Blood Tracker and your bare necessities just keeps you in the fight. And the more health you're or the more damage you're dealing and the more health you're missing, the more damage you're gonna deal. I mean, pretty simple concept, pretty simple play style. It's just kind of maneuvering and knowing when to use that right mouse button and knowing your, the enemy team comp and where your teammates are and all that stuff. Pretty much the basics of the game anyway. But that makes Boris an insanely strong hero, especially against teams with not much CC. So keep this all in mind when you're playing him. You don't want to get too aggressive, especially like earlier on. You can be aggressive, but against like full teams, it's gonna bite you, because especially if they have CC, like if you're facing, like a Grux in the jungle and you decide to go try and counter jungle and bully him, it might work out. But if they get a rotation from, say, a Bellica in mid or a steal from the off lane, now all of a sudden you're in trouble. So just don't get too aggressive, know the situation, know the team comps, etc., etc. Alright, so with that being covered, let's go ahead and jump into the aspects here. And so the aspects are actually pretty easy for Boris in this case. I rarely ever say, like, this is 100% the way you should do it. This is the best way to do it, blah, 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 stuff like that. I rarely ever say that. But with Boris, it's actually pretty easy, because there's at least one aspect that you should almost always take. And the reason for that is because it basically is part of his passive, just like adding on to it, essentially. So, and that aspect is going to be King. So, with King, you get permanently gain 4 attack speed, and then you gain 2 more for every 20 CS and 2 attack speed for every hero kill, with a max of 20 total attack speed. Nice, right? Attack speed, that's cool. This is where it gets fun. Gain 1.5 to 2.5% based on your level of total basic attack damage as physical power for every 10% of your missing health. So this, literally, if you remember his passive, this is kind of his passive, but a little bit different, but it's following the same, it's following the same guideline as the passive is. It's following the same theme. Missing health gives you damage. That's just going to pile on top of that passive. Really good. Like I said, I rarely ever say do this, but I would definitely suggest using King. Even if you're in the jungle, I would use King. Like, it's too good. It fits too well for him. And on top of that alone, you're getting some attack speed. So either way, really good aspect. Now, as far as the other aspect goes, that's kind of up to like personal, how you want to play him, like what you want to focus. Personally, I enjoy using Beast Hunter in the jungle, just for the stacks of power and health. I mean, I feel like Beast Hunter is just a really good aspect in general, but you also get the endurance and slow resistance and all that stuff. And again, endurance goes up to 20%, or goes up to 30%, excuse me, at 30% max health. So again, the more your health you're missing, you're getting benefits. So this kind of, again, falls in the same theme. Now, I wouldn't say this is like if you're playing Boris in the offlane, I wouldn't say Beast Hunter is probably your go-to. I would say something more like, depending on how you're going to build him, if you're going to build him like Bruiser style, where you're building health and physical power, like some of those green items, and we'll get into that in a little bit. You could potentially go Titan. You can go Rogue, Aggressor, Opportunist, depending on how you plan on playing and where you position yourself on the map. You can also go Hunter if you wanted to. I would say that more often than not, the way I play, and probably like my go-to build, is going to be King and probably Titan in the off lane, just because I do build him Bruiser-like. I build quite a bit of health as well as physical power, just to keep him, in the fight, hopefully longer, and allow myself the opportunity to stay in those fights, just having more health. That way, if I get hit by a CC ability, I'm not necessarily dead on the spot. And then also stacking up that power based off how much health I have is just going to help as well. Now, jungle, I would definitely say Beast Hunter and King are probably your go-to there. Unless you plan on just living in their jungle and being mega aggressive, I would say probably like Aggressor or even Opportunist, you know, with the destroying enemy wards and stuff. So, again, kind of a personal decision based off how you want to play it, but those are generally what work the best. So, just keep that in mind. Okay, so with that being covered, let's go ahead and jump into the items we're going to build. And so, this also will kind of depend on if you play him jungle or off lane, but generally the full build, the final build is going to be the same, minus maybe the affliction and all that stuff. So, jungle, you're obviously going to start affliction, health pot, and a rad pulse. That's pretty much standard for any jungler. Off lane, you'll probably start, in my opinion, I would start Titan's bow and a small health pot, just because I feel like the extra damage and the lifesteal is just going to help you. I don't find Titan's armor to be all that helpful unless you're playing like maybe a ranged offlaner or maybe like a gadget or something like that. Just for, you know, simply for the early game to be able to sustain and stay in the lane. But I would definitely, I say Titan's bow for any other situation. After that, the build's pretty much going to be the same, and it's really just going to kind of depend on how far ahead you're able to get. Typically when I play Boris, I try and rush Sword of Souls, but the first thing I typically will build is I'll usually go into like a Voracious Steel just to add to my life steal early on. That doesn't necessarily mean I just go to this one for an example, because I know this is another item I'll typically run. But Voracious Steel early can really help with the sustain and everything, and with that life steal, and then adding a little bit of physical power as well. So like I'll probably like buy Voracious Steel first and then rush Sword of Souls so that I can start the stacking on that. And then I'll come back to whatever lifesteal item I decide to buy later on. And then somewhere in there I'll try and buy the boots. Maybe not necessarily the final boots, but at least the first version of the boots, just to get that extra movement speed. The boots that you build, really, it's kind of personal preference. I mean, like with any bruiser that I build, typically I avoid the Boots of the Hunt just because attack speed really isn't, you're already getting a bunch of attack speed like you don't need anymore. I would go with one of the green boots just based off of what you're facing. Like if you're facing like a Kwong or something, you might go with the energy armor boots. If you're facing like a Grux or another Boris or something, you might go physical armor. Or if the enemy team comp is very CC heavy, you might go the inertia reps for that endurance. So kind of situational. Like I said, I don't see too much use out of the Boots of the Hunt just because you're already building a bunch of attack speeds. So one of the green boots for sure. And then so after Sword of Souls, you got your boots built probably, or at least the first version of the boots. If you're playing jungle, you might go ahead and finish off like your affliction. And again here, red or green, like you can kind of go with either. I prefer the red just because like I like the damage. His wave clear is already so good, you really don't need the Gale, like the crushing presence. I mean, you can add it in there. It's not going to necessarily hurt anything. It's just going to take away a little bit of damage for you. So I mean, that's kind of up to you. If you're behind maybe and you're trying to really focus on your wave clear and get your CS up, you might go Gale. But definitely Reign of Fervor is probably the preferred option here. Now, after that, this is probably where I'll go into my lifesteal item, since I already have my Voracious Steel bought. And now, which lifesteal item you go into is also kind of a personal preference. Like, they're all good at different things. Personally, I like the Reaper's Cleaver, just because you're getting attack speed, physical power, and lifesteal, which I know, like, I said attack speed, we don't necessarily need it, but the lifesteal paired with that active and the passive of the ability vamp, that active on the basic attack damage scaling, like AoE effect, is really good. Plus it scales off your basic attack damage, so that's really nice to have. But that 10% ability vamp as well, like that's gonna heal insanely off of your aura right mouse button, which it already does heal you quite a bit, but this is just gonna make it even better. And then also you'll gain increased cleave damage, which basically just means all of your basic attacks are also gonna do like cleave damage, so pretty nice. I do like this one. Alternate options for it, Bloodlust Saber is also pretty good. The physical power, the 20% lifesteal, and then the dash is also pretty crazy. Like now you'd have a dash as well as your tracker, your canisters giving you move speeds. So like you just have a million ways to engage in fights now, like, or get out if you need to. So you use your right mouse button to secure a kill or something, or to dash into somebody, and now you're getting collapsed on. Now you have another escape option. And 20% life steal, pretty good. Now you could also go Devourer's Blade if you want to. A little bit less power, a little bit less life steal, but it gives you critical hit chance. And you can get an overshield from your life steal. If you're life stealing over your full health, you're getting a overshield, which is also pretty nice. Doesn't give you the dash, so I mean you can look at that and make a decision based off of what you want to do, but this will help you be a little bit more aggressive. This one will just kind of help you. You'll be able to deal a little bit more damage in theory with that critical hit chance, but this one might allow you to be more aggressive and get away with it. So something to keep in mind there. Now after that, some good items to keep in mind for Boris. So Fist of the Titan is a good all-purpose item, just, you know, damage potential item. That's gonna apply your the on-hit effect on your basic attacks as well as your right mouse button to apply 1.5% of your max health as physical damage. So really good, especially if you're building health. I also like Unyielding Mantle on him. That's going to give him the overdrive passive to shield himself if he gets low, which, speaking of, another option for him is also the Cloak of Fortune. You can build this or Unyielding Mantle, kind of depends. I think personally, I don't know which one I prefer more, but I tend to build this one more just for the health. If I'm going into like a bruiser build, I do like the lifesteal and stuff that you get on the overdrive shield with this one, and it does give attack speed and critical chance, but the physical power is a little bit less. So I mean, and you're not getting any health out of it, so it's kind of a, maybe if you have some health already built, like say you went into Fist of the Titan and maybe you built like a tank item, or maybe you built like the green cleaver or something like that instead of the purple, you know, like these are all options. So depending on how much health you already have built, you might go into this, or if you're just going for a full damage, like you don't care about how much health you build, you're going full damage, full aggression, like, you know, full send W key style, then this is the option, this is the choice right here I think you go with. Now outside of those items, some good items just to keep in mind for Boris. You can also build into a death blink if you wanted to. Not that you would necessarily need it, but it is there. Gives you some damage and gives you that blink. You could potentially run the crossbow. You're not getting any health out of it, but you are getting just pure damage, and then the on-hit effect. Infernal Gunblade even is a possibility, just because it's giving you a power and attack speed, and then you can stack attack speed for your basic attacks, which can be helpful in certain circumstances. Like I said, if you're building full damage, like this would be a possible like item to build. And of course we can't forget about Demon Sword. So Demon Sword, 45 power, 25 cooldown reduction and health. I actually use this pretty much all the time with Boris as well. I actually kind of forgot about it because it was hiding over there in the corner, but this is also a really good item. I've covered it in multiple videos, why it's good. Even with it being nerfed a little bit with the power, and I think the cost went up a little bit, it's still just too good of an item not to buy. Shredding that armor, and then being able to heal if you have max stacks applied, just too good not to use. And it gives you the health, so if you're going that route, it fits right in. Now you can potentially build tank items on Boris. I don't really I think you can get away with maybe 1 or 2 depending on how much damage you have built already. One that I would definitely like look into if you're gonna go that route is probably Fountain. Now it gives energy, armor, health, some cooldown reduction, but really the main purpose behind this is it's just gonna increase your like healing, your lifesteal, and all that stuff. That's really the only thing like that. Like that's the main reason why I would use this. It does give you some energy armor, but the health, the cooldown, and the increased healing are really what's make this like a decent play for Boris if you're gonna go it that route. I find building a little bit of tank on Boris doesn't seem to like help or hurt. Like it doesn't make a huge difference to the point of like, you know, don't do this, yes, do this. It's just, it's preference. I mean, honestly, if you feel like you're getting, you know, locked down too much and you don't stay in the fights long enough, maybe you decide to build something, I would definitely consider this one, and possibly either this one or maybe even a ring just for the endurance. But I think this is your top choice as far as tank items go. And then probably like, you know, Blighted, Baleful, something like that if you're gonna go that route. Like if you asked me to pick 2 of the best tank items for Boris or whatever, that if I was gonna choose them, I would probably say Fountain and Bale. 2 good items, like 2 solid choices. Like you can never really go wrong with those, especially if you're playing a hero with lifesteal or ability vamp, stuff like that. So yeah, so with that being covered, that's gonna probably conclude this. If you guys have any comments or questions or your requests or anything, just throw them down in the comments. I've seen a couple of requests here recently and stuff. I want you to know I've seen them. I kind of plan these in advance a little bit based off of like, you know, comments I've received in the past, what heroes typically fit my playstyle the best and stuff. I usually cover more first, so that I can give myself time to learn the heroes that maybe I don't know as much. So I have seen your requests and things like that. Just be patient with me. But keep them coming. Keep the feedback coming. If you know you've got stuff to add to this, throw it in the comments. Spreading that information is always a good thing. Trying to make these as helpful as possible. Not trying to make it like a, you know, this is me telling you how to do something. This is just like almost like a conversation starter. You know, theory crafting, whatever. Like, hey, I didn't realize that item works for, you know, this hero or whatever. Or, hey, maybe that'll work for this hero or whatever. Stuff like that. So, you know, feel free, jump in the comments, say whatever, give any feedback. And with that being said, I will attempt to get these out to you weekly. Again, like I said, thank you for the patience. Until next time, later, guys.